Well, good morning, everybody. To get us started today, I thought I would just take a quick look back at the lake effect snow event we watched at the end of last week and over the weekend. The first map may look kind of unassuming until you have a quick look down here at the color bar. And what we can see here is that since September 30th, so this is kind of a season-to-date map, this past weekend's lake effect snow event added substantial snowfall amounts. A couple of places in parts of New York saw over 80 inches of snow, so that is 7 feet 8 inches in total just from one particular event. We had these very strong what are called shore parallel bands that came off the end of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, but that's not to kind of ignore the lake effect snow that we did see on the eastern side of Lake Michigan and Lake Superior as well, where some places picked up several inches of snow. But what I want to do with this is I want to broaden this out and take a look at a couple of other maps that kind of give us this national perspective. Little different color bar here than the one I just used. But what we're looking at now is season-to-date snowfall totals for the country. And we've had some decent snows that have come into the Cascades in the Sierra Nevada. They've pushed through the north central Rockies. And of course, we had that blizzard that hit parts of coming out of Montana into North Dakota. Now, what's important about this is we need to monitor these maps throughout the growing season, throughout the winter for the growing season. And the reason for that is because the amount of snow that gets packed up into the mountains, especially in the west, is critical to the success of next year's growing season. So this will be a map we're going to look quite a bit at. It is the departure from normal. So we want to keep track of how much we've had compared to normal. And right now, the snowfall amounts compared to normal that have added up this year are very high. But you do notice that there's a bit of a dry hole in the middle of this, a pocket where we've missed out on a lot of that in parts of the hard red winter wheat belt and in the western plains. And that's an area that I'm going to continue to stay concerned about. Because if you just notice, this whole region in through here just continues to be dry. Systems continue to miss. They either run too far to the north or they form too far to the south to draw the moisture back. This also extends down into the desert southwest as well. Now, that's not to ignore the dry conditions we've seen from parts of the southeast to the eastern corn belt, but there's going to be some changes in this coming very soon that we need to take a close look at here. So I wanted to give you some stats so far in the month. Let's go over here on the left. This would be the precipitation ranks by climate district so far this month. And again, those dry areas really just kind of jumping out at us here to the places that really need some fall precipitation going forward. On the temperature side of it, this map is a bit deceiving because remember, it was early in the month where we had the near record cold in the northwest and western United States that has since kind of been let out across the rest of the country. So what you're really seeing here is a reflection of the first 2 weeks of the month. This all since has been dislodged and moved farther to the east. And this whole pattern here kind of has flipped, and there's quite a bit of moderation coming in the temperatures over the next 10 to 15 days. So let's just go ahead and look at it big picture. Some of the more disappointing model trends for me have been the latest updates sending more of the moisture from the now kind of re-energized Pacific jet into British Columbia versus coming into the Pacific Northwest. We see that into not only week 1, but week 2. But one of the big stories we'll be covering this week, we kind of hinted at it last week, but there's been a lot of model spread, is we have a short that's going to dig out of the northwest. It's going to meet up with a low that's going to be forming here and potentially a large low pressure system that spreads toward the north and east. And so you can see how much wetter than normal this particular area is going to be. You get into week 2, there's still very large model spread to finish this month and start December. And we're going to talk more about that in tonight's in-depth report. But to kind of get an idea on why I'm favoring the European model right now, over the last few weeks, the red being the GFS, the blue being the European, we can actually see that the European's performance has been quite a bit better. So if you remember from last Friday, my in-depth report, we kind of looked at the difference in the models. It was pretty substantial, and I'm going to favor the European at this particular point. It was, in my opinion, the most consistent over the weekend. So we're going to look at it today. All right, so this is starting off this morning. There is Monday morning. I got a little clipper system that's trying to come out of parts of Saskatchewan and cut across Manitoba, maybe bringing some snow showers to the upper Midwest here by Tuesday into Wednesday. And during that same time period, the base of the trough continues to sit over, Florida, which saw in places extremely heavy rainfall over the weekend. Now on Tuesday, we do have another system that comes into the Pacific Northwest, but just notice I had anticipated the trajectory of the system being farther to the south than it currently is. It's hitting more of its snow in British Columbia and then coastal Washington and Oregon. And as it plays forward, it may spread some snow in the northern Rockies here, but this this isn't quite the same caliber of a system I'd anticipated about a week ago. You then notice that after that, the big push here is into British Columbia. Now that wave that came through the northwest is diving here, and we've opened up the Gulf of Mexico because there's a high pressure cell sitting over the east, and that's beginning to deliver some moisture into this area. And what we're watching for is on Thursday morning, Thursday midday, and Thursday evening, this low beginning to appear. I don't yet, even though it's only out to Thursday, have an idea on what we could see in terms of the extent of some stronger storms over the south, but we need to see where this low ends up forming because it could produce some very heavy rain over parts of the southeast that are dry and also bring some of that rain and maybe some snow into the eastern Corn Belt, which you saw earlier was very dry. Now, this could deliver some very heavy rain to the east coast from the Carolinas through the mid-Atlantic as this system on Friday morning, Friday midday, Friday afternoon, and evening curls up the east coast. And behind it, we will get a shot at some cooler air. But it's the temperature pattern that I think is going to be really important for us to diagnose here in just a few moments. You do notice another system's coming into the northwest, but again, the trajectory seems to be a bit farther north than I had anticipated in previous forecasts from about a week ago. So if we just take that idea that I just showed you here, and again, we're going to build on this in each report this week, I want to show you the latest forecast for at least the probability of getting an inch of precipitation. Now, this is liquid equivalent, so we're looking here at, if you melted the snow down, what it would be as well. So our highest probabilities run, basically from the lower and mid-Mississippi River Valley to the northeast and down to the mid-Atlantic, and of course sitting on the tail end of that deep trough. But on the western side of the Mississippi here, getting into the plains, into the Canadian prairie, we don't have much moisture return in this particular setup. And again, even though you do see good chances for moisture coming into the west, this is less than what I had anticipated. Just thinking about that moisture kind of coming over the Mississippi River Basin, I want to show you the latest update here from Memphis. Let's go to it. And we do see, whoops, that's not Memphis. There we go. There's the Mississippi at Memphis. We're about 4 feet below low stage right now. There was some recovery over the last week, but the drier forecast in the western tributaries has taken the, as you see over there on the right, the river levels kind of back down. So there's no substantial fast recovery planned as we kind of go forward here on the river. Okay, let's talk about the temperatures though, because we've already begun the moderation in the plains. As we go from Monday into Tuesday, the west coast is warm. Broad warmth is spreading into the midsection of the country compared to normal. It's still cooler south, but watch this by Wednesday. On Thursdays when we're watching the system starting to emerge here, but toward the end of the week, a large ridge begins to open in the west. We're cooler here because of the cloud cover and rainfall late this week, all right? That's what's going on here, but 60s possibly in South Dakota. And as we play into Saturday and Sunday, very mild for the end of November here. Now, how long does that last? Well, the day 5 through 10 outlook maintains that warmer bias, but we start to see deeper troughs moving into Western Canada, setting up for the beginning of December. And this could deliver into that kind of first 15 days of December, a very active go of it across the north interior of the United States. And I'm going to show you the latest outlook from the CPC for that time frame. So this would be the week 3, week 4 temperature outlook. So you can see there's the colder northern tier of the U.S. with the warmth down in the southern plains. But they're calling for increased activity in the Pacific Northwest, and it just seems as though this pattern is going to favor more systems kind of following those two arrows, which is very typical of a La Nina December, okay? NOAA also released its latest outlook for winter, and I put this in today's report, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit in tonight's in-depth report as to what we could be expecting in terms of temperature volatility and where I think the best moisture return is going to be. So we're going to continue that discussion from last Friday. We're also going to dig deep into what's going on in South America, because over the next 10 days, there is substantial risk of being drier centered on Mato Grosso do Sul and southern Mato Grosso. And then now the models have trended much drier for a big section of Argentina, keeping the wettest conditions pretty far to the south. So this is just another kind of push in the wrong direction for South America's growing season, kind of missing out, especially in Argentina, on some desperately needed rains. So that meant that the rainfall they got about a week ago has kind of already been undone. It's already out of the system, and it may have provided some temporary relief, but it's going to continue to show up as a drought region going forward. So we got a lot to be discussing this week. I look forward to talking to you, but I'll only be doing reports on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. I'm going to take Thursday and Friday off. So hope you all have a good week, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.